Welcome to the REITE Club podcast, where the focus is on helping you, the real estate investor, advance to the next level. And now let's join this week's hosts and share ways for you to customize your life.
So we talked about cash flow. So when you're looking at your cash flow numbers, like how are you, or how would you even suggest that somebody figure out like what market rents might be for a specific area? Like where can they get that data?
I would speak with specifically with a local realtor, and I think that's very important. Everybody has their own realtor that they like to work with, but a realtor from Ottawa isn't necessarily going to be a great realtor to tag along with you to go buy a property in Hamilton or London or somewhere around there. I think the knowledge of the local market is very important for everybody. And a realtor that does deal in real estate will understand, they'll have their finger on the pulse of what a 2-bedroom is going for or what a single family home can rent for, depending on the condition it is or the size or whatever. I think that is the most important key for anybody.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You've got to work with people that have a local pulse on the market. I mean, it could be even through property managers that are local in that area. If you're planning on hiring that property management company, they likely have some good data because many of them also place the tenants and put the rents at whatever the market rent is and start screening that way. What about, stress testing the property for, the rate increases? Like, how are you factoring some of that in, as we know that like, we're not going to be in these low rates forever. Something that cash flows now may not necessarily cash flow the same, in 2 years from now. Are you doing anything specific to account for that?
Yeah, well, for us, we don't take any money out of our company per se. We're accumulating our cash and our cash flow, but also at the same time, when we do look to purchase, we try and envision what would happen upon our mortgage renewal. How much more can we handle, and what effect will that be on the bottom line? At the same time, we're hoping that there will be at least one tenant turnover in a property. So if we're doing multi, if it's a 3-unit property, assuming that we're going to get at least one tenant turnover in that 4 or 5 year period of time and maximize our market rent on one of those units, that'll additionally help us during the refinance when we go through that.
Mm-hmm. So you're buying these essentially with the tenants in place, and then hoping that one of them or 2 of them or 3 of them move out at some point so that you can reset the rents back to market. Because in Ontario, if there's a tenant in place, if these buildings are in rent controlled units, you can only increase it by a very small amount, which is 1.2% in 2022 and not more than 2%, thanks to Kathleen Wynne back in the day that capped it. But market rents can go up 10-15% a year because of supply and demand and the low vacancy. And so when your tenants move out, if you're a new investor, that is actually a good thing, right? It is a good thing when they move out and you can reset to market. Once they've been there for 2, 3, 4 years, you'll start falling behind. Thoughts?
Yeah, it's extraordinary. The whole thought process of all of that, like you said, we're capped this year at 1.2%, and yet, we got nailed on our insurance increase over the last 2 years. It must have gone up about 30 or 40% combined for the past 2 years. 1.2% doesn't go very far when you have one of your suppliers that is insisting that you come up with the extra money. And a lot of, I don't want to be a tenant basher, but just realistically, a lot of tenants don't understand some of the expenses that a landlord goes through. They don't understand why when a tenant does turn over, that a unit that was going for X is now going for X plus $500. It is to be able to properly manage the property. Not a huge windfall. It is money that's being allocated to additional expenses that are coming up. I'm pretty fortunate right now. One of my tenants in my personal building, they just left after 3.5 years. They were excellent tenants, and there's that loss of a great tenant that you can count on, but there's also the opportunity to get back to market rent. So for this property here, I'm able to increase by $400 a month. For a small town, that's pretty decent, and that'll help me pay for the extra insurance. That'll help me spiffy the place up and get it ready for a great new tenant that I've already found for June. It is necessary to go through to put those increases in, even though it's difficult on society that they're facing all these increased expenses as well. But we're not doing it out of greed. We're doing it out of the necessity to properly manage our property.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing. And, the other thing, because you're a realtor, I'm just curious, and we're going to take a little bit of a different question here, but, you talked about placing the tenants and finding the tenants, which is awesome. Is there any specific screening measures or things that you do in order to find the right tenant?
Lately, what I've been doing is actually asking for word of mouth. Basically, because our area, there is a housing shortage, like there is in most of the country, most of the province. So now I'm at a point where if we do get a vacancy, I ask colleagues and I ask friends, and I give them or their contacts the first kick at the can. And I think there's a little bit of better safety net in there, because a friend of a friend is more than likely going to go out of their way to be a great tenant, and they're not going to want to let down their lead who referred somebody to you. So I think that's important, but at the same time, they're still screened, just to make sure that the income is there, and do they have any past references and stuff like that. But I think that's a good way to go about it, because we hear so many horror stories of that one potential lousy tenant that can actually, ruin your livelihood. And those are the ones that have to be avoided at all costs.
Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, if somebody knows somebody that's a great tenant, I mean, you still do obviously your regular checks, but it's also nice to know that, they, like you said, were referred by somebody else who, if they mess it up, they're never going to be referred by that person ever again. What about, I want to go and ask you just a couple questions before we wrap up, just about, offers. And you're a realtor, you probably do a lot of offers for yourself, but you also probably write up a lot of offers for other investor clients. What are some clauses that now that I think the market is slowly shifting, that we could probably have some clauses back versus just going firm? Of course, there's risks and pros and cons, but what are some maybe interesting clauses that as an investor you might want to consider, or just what you're seeing works really well in order to win the deal?
Well, the last 2 years, it's definitely been the seller's market, and not only that, but there's been a lot of competition. A lot of them have gone multi, so it's been difficult to put in anything that is, that's going to be very beneficial for the buyer. But now that things, like you said, are softening up a little bit, you still have to put in, your inspection clause. You never know what could be hiding.
Thanks for listening to the REITE Club podcast, where the focus is on helping all levels of real estate investors advance to the next level and help you customize your life. Be sure to tune in next week at reiteclub.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you get a few seconds, please rate the podcast wherever you're listening. It helps the show get noticed by others like you, and we truly appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe.